Thank you for joining us for the virtual Treasurers Training by the Duval County Council of PTAs. Before we get started, I first wanted to thank you for taking on or continuing with this very important volunteer position to enhance and supplement your child's educational experience. My name is Doreen Abbott, and I'm the DCC PTA Treasurer for the 2020-2021 school year. Like many of you, I got involved early on with PTA primarily because I wanted to keep informed about what was happening at my child's school. That initial thirst for information has now turned into many years of volunteering in various capacities, often at times much to my child's dismay because Mom was always at school, although that didn't seem to be much of an issue until middle school. Recently, my child made the comment that I know all of my friends only because of her. When I asked her what she meant by that, she said all of my friends were PTA people. At first, I was somewhat offended by the statement, but after a minute or so, I realized that while not entirely correct, many of my close friendships were formed because of my involvement with PTA. I share this only because PTA isn't just for the kids. Sometimes it may be the most adult interaction with people who are in your same situation with children of a similar age. I am very thankful for the many friendships I have formed over the years because of my involvement with PTA. Okay, enough about me. Let's get started with why we're here today, the Treasurer's Training. Ideally, we would have conducted this training in person. However, given the current situation with COVID-19, this training is virtual. This is one part of the training, and throughout the year, more training sessions may be added. Be sure to subscribe to the DCC PTA YouTube channel to be informed of any new postings, and be sure to open and read all of your DCC PTA emails. Not only are the emails full of useful information, they also contain links to Florida PTA, National PTA, and other helpful resources. The first thing for you to keep in mind as a treasurer is that you are responsible for money that is not yours. You are acting in a fiduciary capacity, and careful attention must be paid to all of the transactions and procedures that deal with the care of your membership funds. Today, we are going to be going over 10 of the top tasks that, as treasurer, you will need to do or follow. At the end of the training, there will be a link to a Google form for you to complete to get credit for completing this required treasurer's training. You will also be able to submit questions on the form in case we didn't touch on something we didn't review today and you still had questions about. This video will be on our YouTube channel for you to revisit any time or for a refresher. And before you think you're going to skip ahead to get to the end and fill out the Google form just to get credit, please know that there is a hidden secret question within the presentation that you will need to answer correctly to receive credit. Now, let's begin. You are not alone. Taking on the task of treasurer may sound like a daunting one, but it doesn't have to be. In its simplest form, you are in control of the PTA checkbook. You need to make sure that all money is accounted for and all funds are properly authorized before disbursement. DCC PTA is here to help you with any questions that you may have about running your local unit. There's a lot of information online regarding the treasurer's duties, and you can find the treasurer's toolkit at dccpta.org. Sometime in August, and after you have your officers registered with the state, Florida PTA will email the Dollars and Cents Guide, which is the holy grail of information for treasurers. In it, you will find guidance on almost everything imaginable. If you don't find it there, please let us know so that we can research and include it for future PTA boards. The National PTA also has a Finance Quick Reference Guide on their website at pta.org. Go ahead and bookmark all 3 of these websites in your browser because you will want to reference them throughout the year. dccpta.org, floridapta.org, and pta.org. Finally, all local units are required to use MemberHub. If you haven't already set up your MemberHub page, please visit floridapta.org/MemberHub for guidance. If you are a new local unit, you are starting from scratch. DCC PTA is here to help you set up your local unit, register members, collect dues, and hold your election of officers. Dues are important because they are your source of income. Each local unit sets their membership amount in their local bylaws and/or standing rules. Every PTA membership has state and national dues that must be remitted on a monthly basis as the membership funds are collected. The amount that is remitted to Florida PTA is $3.50 per membership, which covers both the state and national dues. They forward the national dues. You do not. In addition to the state and national dues, each year local units are required to pay the Duval County Council dues of $35 by November 1st as one of the requirements in order to remain in good standing. One of the great features of MemberHub is that it will automatically calculate the amount of dues owed to Florida PTA for state and national dues, and you can remit electronically online. Next, we're going to be talking about collecting money. It is important that every time you collect or count money, there are two people present and that you use a deposit count form every single time. The funds then must be promptly deposited into the local unit's PTA's bank account. PTA funds should never be deposited into an individual's personal account. You will need to keep records of all of your financial transactions, including deposits. After you deposit the funds at your bank, staple the deposit to the deposit count form for audit purposes. By following this simple procedure, your year-end audit will go more smoothly. Next, we're going to be talking about dispersing money. Every disbursement must have a signed, approved check request form. The form should be completed in its entirety with original receipts attached to the request. You should have at least 3 check signers on your bank account, and none of the check signers can be related. 2 people should sign every check in their officer capacity. Include as treasurer or as president after your signature on the check. Pay all of the local unit's bills by check and in a timely manner. Never sign a blank check or one made out to cash. All disbursements should be able to be made by check in advance or by reimbursement. Therefore, local units should not have a credit card unless very stringent controls are in place. Please check with DCC PTA before acquiring a credit card in the local unit's name. National PTA highly recommends and DCC PTA agrees that debit or gift cards not be used as a form of payment due to record-keeping issues. There are many risks with the use of debit and gift cards being used for local unit PTA business. National PTA highly recommends that debit or gift cards not be used as a form of payment. If the debit or gift card is lost or stolen, your bank account could easily be drained before you even realize the card is gone. It's also quite difficult to track the utilization of the card if multiple people have one. The accounting is much more difficult to maintain since individual receipts are the only record of purchase, and if they are not turned in a timely manner, you may not have record of funds spent. Finally, gift cards are not traceable once purchased. Your budget is your blueprint for how your local unit will operate throughout the year. It is simply an estimate of money coming in and money going out. The budget is developed by a budget committee, not just the treasurer. The committee should discuss what the local unit's plans and goals are for the year and gather suggestions, needs, and the probable costs for these items. The Budget Committee reviews the information as well as past budgets to get a basis for the current year's budget. The prior year should have had carryover funds, which represents your starting point for the current year. If you are a new local unit, you will be starting from scratch. A budget should be adopted or approved by your general membership at the beginning of the year and whenever there are amendments or changes to your budget. Funds cannot be raised or spent until a budget is approved. After your budget is adopted, it should be followed closely in all financial transactions. If there is not a line item in your budget for specific expense, then you cannot do it. All expenditures in your budget must support the PTA mission. It cannot be said enough. Document everything. Your local unit records cannot be complete unless all of the following information is included. All deposit count forms and bank deposit slips attached. All signed check request forms and carbon copies of checks. All receipts. All invoices, and they should be marked paid with date, check number, and initialed. Any returned checks. Copy of the board meeting minutes, any correspondence, and a copy of the bylaws and standing rules. Your treasurer binder should include all of these items throughout the year and will be necessary for the year-end audit. All local units should have some form of insurance, and there are three main types for you to consider: general liability, bonding, and officers insurance. General liability insurance would cover routine activities if someone gets injured or if there's property damage at a PTA event. Bonding would protect the PTA from financial losses from theft or embezzlement if internal controls are in place. And finally, officers insurance provides individual officers a level of protection from being financially responsible for any personal liability in the event the PTA is sued or unable to pay its bills. Reporting is the cornerstone of all treasurer duties. Before you do any fundraising at school, a request for fundraising activity form must be submitted and approved by the principal before any fundraising begins. The treasurer should give a report at each board meeting and every general meeting. The report should include the following information: the current cash balance in all accounts, a comparison of income and expenses to the budget, activity that has transpired since the last reporting, including funds received, funds spent, and funds transferred between accounts. Transparency is key. Each month, the local unit must submit the completed outside school related organizational monthly report to the school bookkeeper. Once the bookkeeper and principal sign off on the report, you should request a copy for your treasurer binder. The monthly report will include a recap of all deposits made, all checks written, and a detailed listing of all outstanding checks. Every local unit must have a financial review or audit at least once a year at the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. However, a financial review or audit can be requested at any time by the executive board or whenever there is a change in treasurer positions. The financial review or audit is completed by 3 non-check signers and must be completed before any checks are written for the next fiscal year. A copy of the completed financial review or audit is provided to your school's bookkeeper and must be sent to audit@floridapta.org and treasurer@dccpta.org by September 30th each year. Okay, I know this is a lot to absorb, so let's take a quick little break from all this treasurer talk. As stated earlier, you will need to complete the Google form after watching this training in its entirety in order to get credit for doing so. One of the questions on the Google form is going to be, what is my favorite amusement park? Now, some of you may just naturally assume it is one of the many Florida parks, but you would be wrong. Being a transplant from up north, my amusement park always belongs to Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. If you ever have the opportunity to go, you really should, because it's so much fun and not nearly as commercial as the Florida parks. Now remember, when completing the Google form, you will have an opportunity to ask questions that may not have been covered in this presentation. Also, if you ever have any questions throughout the year, you can email me at treasurer@dccpta.org. All right, now let's get back to the treasurer fun. Okay, now on to some serious matters, and these are some of the biggies. The rules you don't want to violate with the IRS, Florida Department of Revenue, PTA, or Duval County Public Schools District. First of all, the IRS rules. Every year, a PTA unit is required to file a tax return, even if not active. The return is due by November 15th, but it is a best practice to file it contemporaneously with your completed audit. All of the information you need to file the IRS return is included in with your audit, so why not get it done at the same time? If your gross receipts are less than $50,000, which many of our local units have, then you will be filing a Form 990N. This form is really quick and easy to complete. For receipts between $50,000 and $200,000, your unit will need to file Form 990EZ and Schedule A and G. For gross receipts over $200,000, your unit will file a Form 990. If your local unit is collecting this much money throughout the year, we strongly suggest that you use a paid professional for IRS reporting purposes. Once you file the appropriate tax form with the IRS, you will forward a copy to 990@floridapta.org and treasurer@dccpta.org. Follow the IRS rules. Do not jeopardize your local unit's nonprofit tax-exempt status. I'm just going to leave this screen up for a minute for a quick review. More information regarding IRS rules can be found in the dollars and cents. Here are the Florida Department of Revenue rules which all local units must follow. One of the more confusing points with treasurer duties is the topic of Florida sales tax. PTAs are not licensed to collect or remit sales tax. If you are going to resell an item, pay the sales tax to the vendor at the time of purchase, like t-shirts, things like that. If you are giving away the item or will be consuming the item for PTA purposes, use your sales tax exemption form with the vendor and pay with a PTA check. When the purchase is made with personal funds of an authorized representative, the purchase is subject to sales tax, even if the representative is subsequently reimbursed by the exempt organization funds. Therefore, you should always pay vendors with a PTA check in order to maintain the tax-exempt status. Some of these PTA rules have already been mentioned, but they are worth mentioning again. Financial review or audit at least once a year after the close of the fiscal year, or whenever there's a change in treasurer, or whenever the executive board requests one. Always have an approved budget before collecting or spending money. Always have 2 signatures on check and have the signers sign in their officer capacity. Do not have checks made out to cash. Do not pay bills with cash or debit cards. Report and document everything. Use MemberHub. It is a requirement for PTA. Some more PTA rules to go over. Always have 2 people count the money. Deposit cash immediately. You need to remember to remit dues to Florida PTA monthly as they are collected. Give a treasurer's report at every meeting. And most of all, don't be sloppy. And now to go over the Duval County Public Schools District rules. Submit the June 30th financial review or audit to the school's bookkeeper with a copy of the June bank statement. Submit the outside school-related organizational monthly reports monthly, preferably by the 15th of each month. Submit and get approval for the request for fundraising activity from the principal before any fundraising begins. We're in the home stretch now, only a couple of more slides. Please keep in mind that membership dues are the primary source of funding for PTAs. Fundraising is not, but it can be used to enhance the programs that promote the objectives of the PTAs. Always remember the 3-to-1 rule. 3 projects should be planned for every one fundraiser. Those projects should show up as line items on your budget. Only the president signs contracts and does so as a representative of your PTA and not in an individual capacity. Be sure to include your title when signing on behalf of your local unit. Sponsorships and in-kind donations are also means of funding projects. Be sure to issue receipts and/or thank you letters. Keep in mind that PTAs cannot endorse or advertise for products, companies, or foundations, but you can acknowledge their donation and provide a link to their website. As we wrap things up here, the most important thing for you to remember as treasurer is to be responsible. This volunteer position is probably one of the more time-intense positions, and thank you again for agreeing to take it on for your local unit. A successful treasurer is accurate, organized, honest, dependable, and consistent. Consistency is going to be the key for your local unit to run smoothly and efficiently, and will help to make your organization run with transparency. Do not keep your local unit's books a secret. Your local unit president and treasurer should work very closely together to ensure that PTA money is spent to support the PTA mission. Okay, that's a wrap, folks. I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your day to watch this training video and for making the commitment to be an integral part of your local unit's PTA. Please take a moment to answer a few brief questions regarding this training, including the secret question you need to answer correctly to get credit for the training at the Google link below. You will also get a chance to submit any questions that you may have that we did not go over in today's training. I will try to put the link in the comments for this video, or it will go out in the next newsletter as well. Thank you again and have a great year. There's no wrong way to PTA.